Hendrick scored his third win in a row, and counting the Indianapolis 500, his fourth for the year. Today, Fittipaldi is in the middle of a tight battle for PPG points. This year, he has yet to win, but is currently tied for third.
Well, the championship is still completely open to anybody. I'm running third now, a very good chance of winning. Would be, I would say, at least 7-8 drivers a good chance of winning. For me, it would be fantastic to win the second time the championship.
Last year here, Michael Andretti started on the pole and led until he tangled with his father on a pit stop. Today, he's the hottest driver on the circuit, looking for 3 wins in a row.
Well, it's very important to try to get 3 in a row, but the only problem is there's another 20-some guys out there trying to stop us.
On Detroit streets, Michael started on the pole, overwhelmed the competition, and scored his first win of the season. Then 2 weeks ago at Portland's Rose Festival, the younger Andretti fought his way to the front and took the win just seconds ahead of his father. Today, Michael is third in the points in the season-long fight to claim the PPG Cup, the symbol of the IndyCar World Championship. While Michael looks at 3 in a row, he is also aware that he could take the points lead today. The points leader is Al Unser Jr. Little Al won at Long Beach. At Milwaukee, he battled with Michael Andretti until Michael ran out of fuel on the last lap. Al roared into the lead, and with the win, is a contender for the PPG Cup.
Well, the championship is very important. And the way to win the championship is to win races, and so we're treating this race like the first one. You know, we're taking each day, one day at a time, and one race at a time, and we're giving it our best shot, and the good Lord will decide if we're going to win or not.
But don't ever count out 3-time IndyCar World Champion Rick Mears. He scored his first road race win in 5 years last fall at Laguna Seca. This year, he scored a win at the season opener at Phoenix International Raceway. Here at Cleveland, he has the pole with a new track record. Second in the points, Rick Mears is always a contender. But as this season approaches the halfway point, the fight for PPG points continues, and the race here at Cleveland is always pivotal. Under a hot Cleveland sun, the fight goes on in the IndyCars. ESPN, the world's leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. The battle continues in the IndyCars today on the shores of Lake Erie at the Burke Lakefront Airport, just a few blocks from the center of the downtown of Cleveland, Ohio. It's the CART Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix, and it's a very hot afternoon here. Sunny skies overhead, a light breeze blowing off of the lake, but that's not going to help the drivers stuffed down in the cockpits of those IndyCars. It's going to be a long, hot afternoon for those men. Hello, welcome to Cleveland. I'm Paul Page, and as we come here approaching the midpoint in the IndyCar season, we have a very close points battle underway. As a matter of fact, any one of the top 5 contenders in that points fight by the end of this day could end up being the leader in the points battle. Now, as we mentioned earlier, this is the Burke Lakefront Airport. 362 days of the year, it's an active airport. And then the Penske Speedway people come in, turn it into a racetrack. Now, Derek Daly, you've raced here. When they change it to a racetrack, it causes some problems. This year, the problems were unprecedented.
That's right. Over the last 8 years, one of the biggest problems at Cleveland is the severe bumps and undulations, particularly down the front straight. What they did, they resurfaced it, except for one area was bad. Let's have a look at the old track as it was for the last 8 years. Right past the start-finish line, that left-right kink, that's the area that caused the problems. A lot of the drivers got in trouble, Ray Hall being one of them. Here's a slow motion. Ray Hall hits the bump, car rises up on the suspension, and you see him have that spin. Now, Ray Hall was lucky. Lyondike wasn't so lucky. He hit the wall. What happened? CART stopped the event, stopped practice 79 minutes later, having had discussions with the drivers, having had the forklift trucks out. They decided they had to take out those 2 corners. Now, let's have a look at the new racetrack we're going to have here. Now, past the start-finish line, they've taken out the left-right. Now they run straight down to the new first turn. In my opinion, Paul, I think this is going to give us a better racetrack.
So the new racetrack is ready. The teams and drivers are ready for that famous command.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
So up and down the pit lane, the cars are all fired. Drivers in the cockpit, teams ready to push away. We're ready to start here at Cleveland. Here is the Sears Die Hard starting grid, brought to you by the Die Hard battery, now with more power when you need it most. On the pole with a new track record, Rick Mears, his third road course pole, the 34th pole of his career. Outside, Emerson Fittipaldi, the defending champion here. In the second row, Michael Andretti, who has led all but 8 of the last 477 miles in IndyCar competition. And Al Unser Jr., he was the winner here in 1985. The third row on the inside, Danny Sullivan. His first career win came on this course in 1984. And Mario Andretti, who hasn't won an IndyCar race since his victory here 2 years ago. The fourth row, Bobby Rahal, won the inaugural running of this event in 1982. And Arie Luyendyk, the Indianapolis 500 champion. In the fifth row, Teo Fabi. He has 2 top 5 finishes in his 4 previous Cleveland starts. And Scott Brayton, his 5th top 10 start of this season. Raul Boesel on the inside of the 6th row has enjoyed 3 straight top 10 finishes on this demanding course. And John Andretti, he finished 8th here in 1988, his only start at Cleveland. In the 7th row, Eddie Cheever in a brand new Lola repaired after a crash yesterday afternoon. And Canadian rookie Scott Goodyear. The 8th row, 2 champions. Didier Tays will start on the inside and Mike Groff to the outside. In the 9th row, Roberto Guerrero in his Alfa Romeo powered machine. And Pancho Carter, the winner of the inaugural Michigan 500. In the 10th row, Jeff Wood making his 3rd start of the season. And Michael Greenfield making his first IndyCar start. The 11th row, the grand champion A.J. Foyt and rookie Dean Hall on the outside. In the 12th row, Buddy Lazier and Tony Bettenhausen. And starting all alone in the final row, Randy Lewis. His 2nd career IndyCar start came here in 1984. So the field all ready to go, rolling just a few yards away from the edge of Lake Erie. We'd like to welcome to our telecast for the very first time. She'll be with us throughout the season. We normally see her in a Trans Am car. Welcome, Lynn St. James.
Thanks, Paul. We've got 2 great Andretti stories here. Michael's won the last 2 in a row. He wants to win this one so that he can maybe do a hat trick here and take command of the whole championship for the year. I hope he's not thinking about that, though, and that he's just thinking about driving the race and winning this one. Take them one at a time. The other Andretti, Mario Andretti, the story here is that Mario practiced and qualified all weekend with an ill-handling car. Still got it very well qualified. Found a shock absorber that was not working properly, so he's driving a race car today for the first time with a total different chassis setup. He said, I hope I guessed right.
All right, Lynn St. James will be giving us coverage from down in the pit area. A little further up the pits is a veteran of these telecasts, Gary Gerould.
Well, Paul, Roger Penske, of course, when this season started, everybody said he'd compiled a super team. Mears, Fittipaldi, and Sullivan. Many speculated they would dominate. They've been tough, but they haven't dominated. 1 win for this team thus far this year. But perhaps it all starts to change today because, as you mentioned, Rick Mears with a record starts on the pole. His teammate, Fittipaldi, who's won here 2 of the last 3 years, is alongside. And Danny Sullivan, another 2-time Cleveland winner in the past, starts inside row number 3. Also keep in mind, the last time Rick Mears started on a road course in the number 1 position, it was Laguna Seca last year. He won that race. He'd love to keep that streak going, as would Roger Penske. Paul?
Just a few of the stories that we look forward to this afternoon here at the Burke Lakefront Airport. We take a look at this track now. It was originally scheduled to be an 80-lap race. They boosted the race by 5 laps, but then again they shortened the distance of the circuit. That may have some effect in the running of this race. We'll get to that a little later on. Emerson Fittipaldi, of course, is the defending champion here. This was the race that turned the hat trick for him last year. And in earnings, well, as we take a look down through the earnings, of course, Arie Luyendyk pumped up by the big purse, over $1 million at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But when he takes the green flag today, Michael Andretti will go over the $5 million mark in career earnings. I asked him about that particular amount over the weekend. Michael said, well, Of course, I don't get quite all of that. I don't even think he gets half of that, does he, Derek? Average driver's contract about 40%?
I think average is about 40%. It depends whether your salary is high or low, but I mean, it changes as you get towards the back of the field, believe me.
Former winners here at Cleveland. It's been a very important track for some. Danny Sullivan scored his first win here. Bobby Rahal scoring here in 1982 in his rookie year in the IndyCar. It's a very important circuit, certainly for those two, and critical for Emerson Fittipaldi, as today it is for everyone in this field. Very important point in the season. Here are the chassis, the engines that race here today, as the field moves around on the second of 2 parade laps and prepares to begin the pace laps. You take an onboard look over the shoulder of Al Unser Jr., and you can see when you look out the front of that car that there are very few landmarks for the drivers to use. Boats in the background, the PPG pace cars in the foreground. Over the shoulder now of Bobby Rahal, and you can see it's just runway. In fact, there are the runway landing marks off onto one of the taxiways, and only some barrier and some cones to actually use as braking points. Another one of our onboard cameras taking a look backwards.
That's right, Paul. One of the problems with having so much room that we have here at Cleveland, of course, is reference points. The drivers like to pick out particular reference points for braking and for turning in. Now, Cleveland is so wide, as you see here, as Al Unser Jr. comes down the front straight. There are very, very few reference points. Now, rookies, when they come here, have a lot of trouble adapting to this. Of course, as you come here over the years, like most of the front runners, it gets just that little bit easier.
And you begin to look, as we take a look directly at Al Unser Jr., for rather subtle little things, a crack in the pavement, don't you?
Well, that's right. And of course, as the weekend goes on, people lock their brakes, leave little black tire marks, then they become your reference points. So the initial laps on Friday, when they start practice here, are some of the most difficult. That's when you see drivers making some of their rather larger mistakes.
We mentioned that Rick Mears is on the pole with a new track record. New primarily because it's an entirely new circuit here, so everything that goes into the record books will be new.
Well, that's right, and this, in fact, this shot here is exactly the new section we spoke about on the opening of the show. This is the new turn 1 here that Rahal is now running through. It's a slower turn, but a much, much wider entry into it. It gives the cars a big opportunity to outbrake somebody, but then you come to this wide runway spans here, which gives the slower cars or the faster cars enough time to move around each other. I think we're going to see a lot of racing here on this new section in particular.
Moving along on the Lakeside Straight now. Now, the officials made one other change relative to the start of this race. They moved the starter's stand that holds Nick Finoro, the man with the green and the checkered flags, down another 500 feet. And they did so after watching the Trans Am yesterday and realizing that new long straightaway gave them plenty of time to run up speed. So you can see the starter stand there on the right. They've moved it down just a bit so that they won't have nearly the run-up speed on the first lap, and hopefully thereby will negotiate the first turn a little more safely. That new section of the course, a question mark still, as they now begin to file up into their familiar rows of 2 behind the pace car, and the drivers surge forward into position behind that PPG pace car. Johnny Rutherford, 3-time Indianapolis champion, former kart champion, is at the wheel of the pace car, as he will remain throughout the afternoon here in Cleveland. Now they come onto the pit straight. A little right-hander just ahead, a left-hander, and then we should see a green flag. Rick Mears sits on the pole. His teammate Fittipaldi will come to the outside.
Notice the color change. This here is the newly resurfaced back stretch. This was one of the bad areas last year. This is Chris Mears, very anxious, watching for the start, watching to see how husband Rick gets a handle on that flag from Nick Finoro.
They're lining up nicely now as Rutherford begins to surge ahead of the field. They ask the pole sitter Mears to lay back just a bit as he brought him onto the main stretch. We look for the green flag. The field accelerates now, and the green flag comes out. They race at Cleveland. The pace car comes off immediately. Rahal tries a very wide line, but then drops into line as Fittipaldi comes outside of Mears, and the front row battles among itself. They come around 2 by 2.
Mears has the lead. We were worried about a 5 abreast start, which we almost had. What is this? Michael and down
Michael
the
just
inside.
surged past both Fittipaldi. Now here comes Fittipaldi back as he comes past Rick Mears.
Somebody's in trouble. Both Andretti's are slow, but there's so much racing room here. You can go inside or outside.
2 cars got battled up as they came through that chicane right there. and won by the side of the course.
Michael made a big charge into that first right-hand turn. Obviously something broke, and we see one of our in-car cameras. Michael shakes his head. The 3 in a row is not going to happen here.
It was just what Michael was worried about. The hat trick has gone away already as Al Unser Jr. closes in, as does Rahal, battling with his teammate. Fittipaldi has the lead. Rick Mears rides in second place as Fittipaldi, the defending champion here, streaks across the line and puts lap number 1 into the record books. The fight develops in second place as look at Al Unser Jr. goes one way, his teammate Rahal goes the other, and little Al stops on the brakes, gets there first ahead of Rick Mears. Now Rahal challenges Mears by coming to the outside. On board with Bobby Rahal now. There's the battle for second just ahead of you, and it's a drag race on the Lake Erie Straight.
And Mears does get down the inside. This is what we thought could happen. Al Unser Jr. outbraked him, but Mears had the better run. They're side by side still.
Mears continues his pursuit of Al Unser Jr. for second place, and Rahal is only a few feet back. As we continue, Emerson Fittipaldi is out in front. They maneuver around the stricken car of Michael Andretti, who was a contender right from the start, looking for his 3rd in a row, but it doesn't appear that will happen today here at Cleveland.
Rahal now trying to follow Al Unser Jr. His teammate, they have probably have their car set up similarly. He saw exactly what Al Unser Jr. did. He'll be thinking about it. Now he's right tucked under the rear wing of Rick Mears.
Keep an eye on Rahal in that blue and yellow Craco STP machine. He's lined up right behind the number 2 car of Rick Mears and ready to charge as they come onto the pit straight once again. Rahal has really managed to maneuver back and forth behind cars. He's very maneuverable. There he does it again. That's Mario Andretti that sits in just behind Rahal. But Rick Mears has the faster approach this time and is able to sweep across the front.
Rahal has a look down the inside of Mears. Now somebody sticks a wheel off onto the dirt, but Rahal trying to find a way around Rick Mears still.
Let's get an update on Michael Andretti. Gary Gerald.
Paul, it'll be one of those situations where the engine has been cutting in and out. They'll try to get him in here and go through the routine of checking the electronics. It'll be a painstaking process. They don't know if that will answer it, but clearly no opportunity for 3 in a row, as Derek just indicated, for Michael Andretti. A great disappointment for a team that came in here in such a big role. Paul?
Right on board with Michael Andretti. He got a tow from the kart safety team and very shortly will roll into his pits. Hopefully they can get that car back into the action. I would hate to see Michael Andretti come out of this race so early. Al Unser Jr. now closes on the number 1 car, the Marlboro machine of Emerson Fittipaldi. Then back a few feet, that's the yellow Pennzoil car of Rick Mears, and then Bobby Rahal, then Mario Andretti.
Mario Andretti, of course, Rahal will be very aware that Mario is right behind him, so any move that he wants to make on Rick Mears, he's got to be careful of Andretti. Al Unser Jr. closes up on Fittipaldi. He's going to have his hands full right now.
And they catch a bit of the edge of the race course. We'll see quite a bit of that here. It's so safe to maneuver on this. Sometimes you drop the edge of a wheel off, or in fact deliberately use the grass at the edge of the circuit and kick a little dust up sometimes into the face of your opponent.
Well, that's right, and of course there's so much room here, Paul. You can actually take a chance that you may not take under normal circumstances, because if you actually do go off the road, you can get away with it.
Rick Mears started on the pole here. The last 5 times that Mears has started on the pole, he has failed to lead in the opening lap. Right now, Rick Mears runs in 3rd place. Emerson Fittipaldi is the leader. We'll be back with more. Mario Andretti, perhaps you caught a glimpse of it, was able to move past Bobby Rahal. So the top of the order changes with Al Unser Jr. in front now. Then Fittipaldi, then Rick Mears, Mario Andretti, Bobby Rahal, and Danny Sullivan.
We're on board here with our leader, Al Unser Jr., one of the hardest drivers in the early stages of a race, Al Unser Jr. Let's get down to Gary Gerald.
Well, Derek, the troubleshooting process continues for Michael Andretti, who got the tow, got in here. They peeled off the bodywork. They've changed the battery. They're working on the electronics. They have the starter in place. They have not yet fired. We thought they were going to try to test fire and see if they had solved the problem. As of the moment, they still have not. So the painstaking process for the Andretti team continues here in the Newman Haas pit.
Al Unser Jr. out in front of the number 1 car of Fittipaldi. The Valvoline machine really showing its power here today. And Al Unser Jr., who is now at home either on an oval or a road course. So his early victories all came on road circuits until he scored his first win on an oval this year at the Milwaukee race just after the Indianapolis 500.
And in fact, his teammate is dropping back a little bit. We've got a glimpse of Danny Sullivan, in fact, has put a move on Rahal and now taken that position away from Rahal. He now chases Mario Andretti.
So it appears that Bobby Rahal is struggling with his car. Rahal started up toward the front in the 4th row, along with Arie Luyendyk, but for the past few laps, he has been dropping steadily backwards. Now, a couple of questions that always seem to be asked at an IndyCar event. The first of them, and we alluded to some changes in the length of the circuit, Derek Daly, is fuel. Now, here they have lengthened the race by 5 laps, gone from 80 to 85, while at the same time they've shortened the circuit. So it's not a distance difference, but it may change the staging of the pit stops. Look at that, Rick Mears loses and comes off the course.
That gives you an idea just how hard these people drive all the time. Mears trying to catch up, trying not to let his teammate Fittipaldi and Al Jr. run away, spun coming across the taxiways onto one of these infield straights.
So the question is, do the tactics that occur in the pits change now?
They do change a little bit. Let's have a replay here of Rick Mears. He's following, he's just ahead of this group, does a 180 spin, locks on the brakes, spins it all the way around to a 360, engages the gear, and away he goes again.
Rahal and Luyendyk both have to dart to the left to keep away from the spinning car of Rick Mears.
Now we don't know whether he flat spotted the tires. Of course, when you spin a car at that type of speed, the first thing that happens is you flat spot the tires.
Mario Andretti comes charging around Bobby Rahal as Rahal fights in alongside Sullivan and Mario Andretti. And boy, look at that as they come off the corner. Again, all kinds of different lines can be utilized here because of the tremendously wide course afforded them because they're using a runway here at the Burke Lakefront Airport.
This is the great thing about Cleveland. There's so much room. Now we're on board with Rahal right under that rear wing of Danny Sullivan. He has a look out at the left, decides not to do it because Sullivan has a look down the inside of Mario. This is close racing right here. Now we're on board. Look at that dirt. Paul alluded to that earlier on. Stick a wheel off in the grass, throws dirt into Rahal's face. He's got to be careful of that. That could cause him to spin. This is racing right in the cockpit with Bobby Rahal right now.
That is part of what Rahal is doing when he'll dart out from side to side, is also trying to get a little clearer air over his wings.
Clean air, better downforce because of that air, but also he wants to tell Sullivan, hey, I'm here. Make sure you're aware of that.
Well, this race is an every kart race. Goodyear sponsors on ESPN. Goodyear will be sending a check for $1,000 to Kara, the Championship Auto Racing Auxiliary.
Now Sullivan gets around the outside of Mario, so Sullivan takes the wide line. There's so much room here. There's racing everywhere.
And the grip is fairly good about anywhere, it seems.
The grip really has been good. Now Rahal approaches the Mario Andretti. Mario is actually slowing down a little bit. Lynn, in fact, he sneaks down the inside. Does Mario let him through? Yes, Rahal just squeezes through.
So Rahal battling with Andretti. One of the Porsches poking their nose in there as well. By the way, Rick Mears fell back to 10th place when he spun off of this circuit and is now in a position of trying to fight his way back up.
Mario told Lynn earlier on that he hopes he guessed right because he did change the setup of that car, which is a dangerous thing to do after qualifying on the warm-up. Maybe he didn't make all the correct guesses.
Well, this circuit has been good to Mario Andretti. There you see him in the Kmart Haviland car as he comes down behind Bobby Rahal and just leading the Indy champion, Arie Luyendyk. Mario's last win in the Indy cars came on this circuit 2 years ago. I'm sure that Mario would certainly like to reverse that today.
That's right. The Newman Haas team so dominant the last time out at Portland, and now Michael's in big trouble, and Mario looks as if he's slowly getting into trouble.
Both of the Porsches, you see them identified on the rear wing there by their sponsor Foster's, have moved into contention, straddling Arie Luyendyk for 6th place. So the fight continues with Al Unser out in front, being chased by Emerson Fittipaldi. 9 laps are now complete. We'll be right back. We're back at the Burke Lakefront Airport, Cleveland, Ohio. The Indy cars are racing, and out in front of them all is Al Unser Jr., now being chased by Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi grabbed the early lead away from his teammate Rick Mears, and then little Al took the lead away from Fittipaldi. With these wide runways here, we've seen some great racing in a lot of different lines. A good example there, as you see, one car well down to the inside, and then Fittipaldi is able to grab a much higher line as he moves around Randy Lewis in the AMP car. But the leader of the race, the Valvoline machine, it belongs to Al Unser Jr.
Everything seems to have settled down a bit here. Al Unser Jr. made a great charge to pass Fittipaldi. Now it's settled down. Fittipaldi still is about 10 or 12 car lengths behind. But Al Unser Jr. maintaining station at the lead right now.
Well, it's a hot day. It'll be a long afternoon for these Indy cars. We talked to Al Unser Jr. before the race and asked him, do you still have to watch the car closely, or do you have to play with the car more now that there are 2 less turns?
The Cleveland racetrack now is easier on the cars, and the reason why is because the new resurfacing of the back front straightaway, whatever you want to call it. I call it the back straightaway, and Alan Mertens, my engineer, he calls it the front straightaway. But that straightaway used to be very, very rough, and now it's because of the resurfacing, it's really, really nice now. So really, the Cleveland course is now easier on the cars.
About a 1.5 second difference between the leader, Al Unser Jr., and the second place car of Emerson Fittipaldi. Derek Daly, we started to talk about what the fuel situation, the pit taxes might be.
Fuel becomes a very complicated issue to discuss. Basically, the race distance, the mileage, is a little bit longer. They have enough fuel to finish it, but they're going to try and do it in 2 stops. The Chevrolet cars particularly have a very close call whether they can do it in 2 stops or not. If they have to make a splash, it'll only be for a couple of gallons, but it takes so much time to actually slow down, stop, and speed up again. So they have a closer call than most of the other engines because they're a little bit harder on the fuel, because fuel, of course, makes power.
Watching Danny Sullivan now as he tries to navigate his way around Roberto Guerrero in the Miller Alpha-powered machine. And Sullivan makes his way clear. You can see that Bobby Rahal is now separated just a bit from his battle with Danny Sullivan. As Sullivan drops the back end off at the edge of the course and kicks a lot of dirt in both faces. And that gives Rahal a little bit of a chance to catch up.
Well, that's right. Rahal under braking in particular got down inside Guerrero in the Alfa Romeo. Now, it's amazing.
Look at the Porsche slide way to the inside in this battle with Mario. Look at that. Teo Fabi and Mario battling there.
That's right. This is this new section of the track that we spoke about. There's so much room, but it's amazing. With all the room they have, they still slip off and use the grass.
Danny Sullivan rides in 3rd place. Rahal is in 4th. That battle between the Porsche of Teo Fabi and Mario Andretti is a battle for 5th place right now. So on the top of the order, we're seeing some nice little fights on this circuit. Danny Sullivan, for the moment, rides alone as Rahal has dropped just a bit back.
Remember, Sullivan has won 2 races here. He knows his way around here. He's also Fittipaldi's teammate in that Marlboro car. Maybe the settings are probably very similar, so Sullivan looks as if he's in excellent shape right now.
Danny Sullivan, the number 7 car, one of the 3 cars in the Penske stable this season. Sullivan looking for a win, as they all seek the same objective. But of the 25 starters, of course, only 1 is going to come away with that prize. Sullivan trying to turn some luck around. Since his championship, he's not been able to score quite as well as I think he would have liked, or as many have expected. Win last year in the Pocono 500. Of course, a broken arm last year caused him some difficulties. There's Arie Luyendyk, the Indy champion. And just behind him is Raul Boesel, who replaces Scott Pruitt in that car, the Budweiser car for the year at True Sports. Scott Pruitt, by the way, is here at the track, and looks like he's doing much better. He says he gets off of crutches this week, and Brayton has gotten together with Andretti. Do you believe this?
Mario Andretti, what a bad day for the Andretti family right now. Michael out before the race hardly started.
That's Michael there. That's the car. That was Michael.
So
Michael got it fixed, got it out, and then that happened.
Of course, these cars are painted identically, and from the back, all we saw was the Kmart wing. It's in fact the number 3 car of Michael Andretti, who they got running again.
So Brayton lost it. Oh, just a few more feet, and Michael might have gotten clear.
How bad can your day be when somebody else spins in front of you and collects you, gathers you, and puts you out of the race for a second time?
And Michael's luck to this point had been so incredibly good. Michael Andretti, 174 of 179 laps leading into this race. He was the leader, and twice today he has trouble. We'll be back. We're back at the Burke Lakefront Airport. The U.S. Olympic Festival is now underway, the nation's premier event for America's top amateur athletes, and you'll see all the coverage right here on ESPN. Coverage continues today live at 4 o'clock. And Rick Mears, that's Lazier, Buddy Lazier's car with a problem in the left rear suspension.
Looks like that rear wishbone has broken, and that looks like a magnesium fire, maybe titanium, but something metallic and sparky is rubbing on the ground there. We're not sure whether
he's got some flames at the back of the car as well as he comes in. The pit crew, of course, right there. Plenty of firefighters here at the track, and they'll get that fire out nice and quickly.
Of course, the danger of coming into the pit lane with the car on fire is there's so much fuel around that they try and ask you, if necessary, if possible, get the fire pit out before you get in there. But of course, he was already in the pit lane before he realized he was alight.
Well, Buddy Lazier, the end of his day already, one of the rookies in the CART IndyCar Series. His dad was a racer in the IndyCars as well. And there is Michael Andretti afoot, not happy at all with his day. And here is the onboard. So we just take a look at what happened to Michael after an 11-minute pit stop.
There's Brayton right ahead, loses control. Now Brayton backs into Michael, bang, right there. If Brayton had been able to stop his car, Michael would have got away with that.
We saw that. We also saw a lot of moisture suddenly come up on the lens just before. Could that have been the cause of Brayton's spin? Let's take a look at it one more time. We'll just watch and listen. Yeah, not only did Brayton lose it, but Michael was wandering as well at about the same time Brayton did. I wonder if there wasn't some moisture there, maybe from Brayton's car.
It looks to me as if something did happen to Brayton's car. There was a lot of water suddenly appeared on our camera lens, so we can only presume that something broke in Brayton's car, causing him to spin, and then, of course, he gathered up Michael Andretti. Let's go down to Gary Gerould.
Derek, while we were away earlier in the last commercial break, Rick Mears made an unscheduled pit stop. He thought that a rear tire was going flat. As it turned out, it was not going flat. What this now means, he wasn't within the window. This will be a 3-pit stop race for Rick Mears, who already has had his share of problems despite starting with a track record from the pole.
Well, there was a very quick and out for this, the Pennzoil car of Rick Mears. Only 4 seconds did he tarry in the pits.
Rick Mears
immediately told him everything was okay. Get back out there.
I saw an interesting footnote on Mears after he claimed the pole position here. People ask, why, Rick, are you so good on ovals? He said he is such a precise driver that he likes the precise lines of oval track racing rather than the stab and steer of road tracks.
Well, you saw Buddy Lazier pull out and climb out of the car. He's now with Lyn St. James.
Buddy, what happened? I mean, we know there was a fire, but was there a failure, suspension or something?
Well, I lost my clutch with about 10 laps into the race, which was unusual because we've never really had a clutch problem like that during the race. And from that point forward, all of a sudden, under braking, something had broken in the front of the car. And when I was bringing it in, that's when we caught fire in the rear of the car. So this is, I think, there's a good possibility that, the pickled finger of bad luck bit us in about 3 places at once on this time.
Too bad, tough break.
Yeah, it's tough.
His good luck days are coming, though. Nice young man, and his father is just gently guiding him along in his IndyCar career. At the front of the field, it is still Al Unser Jr. There he is. He's being chased by Emerson Fittipaldi, though for the moment Fittipaldi lies back just a bit. Seems comfortable with it. When we talk about Rick Mears, by the way, who at this moment is in the danger of going a lap down, that's Jeff Wood that Al Unser Jr. works around. Rick Mears drives differently than most of the rest of the drivers here because of injuries suffered in 1984 in Sanair. There is Rick coming up behind Brayton, who's apparently none the worse for wear after that contact with Michael. Rick has to actually brake with his left foot and throttle with his right. He doesn't have the flexion in his ankle to go over and heel and toe.
Well, that's right. I'm not sure whether it was because of his accident or whether he did that as his driving style normally even before his accident. But usually road racers brake with the right foot and flick the foot over to the throttle when they change gear. Rick uses his left foot for the brakes and then his right foot, of course, just for the throttle. So that is a little difference that Mears uses on the road course. But of course, in qualifying here, we just saw how absolutely effective that was.
Well, Rick Mears runs back in 13th place and tries to work his way up. At the front of the field, it is still Al Unser Jr., who has finished no worse than 4th in all but one race this season. We'll be right back. This ESPN Track Fact is brought to you by Quaker State. The Big Q is one tough motor oil. Here's Gary Gerould.
Anytime that a driver has to be concerned with a rough racing surface, the focal point of his concern and the concern of his crew is found basically at the rear of the race car. If you hit a pronounced bump and the rear end pops up in the air, even for a fraction of a second, the RPMs soar and both of these rear wheels freewheel, even for a split second. Then as they come down and engage the track surface, a tremendous amount of stress is felt at critical points all the way through the rear suspension. Now, that stress level is perhaps most pronounced in the drive shaft. There's one on each side. It runs right back here. This is a CV joint. You hear about CV failures. There's one back inside here, both sides of the car. That's where the stress is most significant. Then it's found in the ring and pinion gear. It's concealed in this housing. And then it's transferred back more directly into the gearbox itself. It's the smart driver who doesn't abuse his race car. And it'll be a smart driver that wins this race because of rough track conditions. You have to know just how hard you can push it, because if you stress it too much, a failure at one of these key points puts you out of the race.
Back live here at the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix, and on board Bobby Rahal's Craco STP machine. Rahal currently runs in 4th place. He's looking for Danny Sullivan. Nice little fight here on the circuit with the 30 car. Well, there you see Mario Andretti, who currently runs in 6th and not far behind. Coming into the picture now, there is the 30 car, the Domino's Pizza car of Arie Luyendyk, the Indy champion, and just behind him, the red Budweiser car of number 8. That's Raul Boesel, and boy, they all bottle up coming into the corner.
They do, and Boesel went down the inside, loads of room again, under braking, but Luyendyk accelerates that a little bit faster, but not quite quick enough to get inside Boesel.
We continue to watch this nice battle between Boesel and Luyendyk while we get this update from Gary Gerould.
Further problems for Mario Andretti, Paul. You indicated that something appeared to be wrong. Well, he's got only 40 inches of boost as opposed to the allowable 45. Tony Sicali says there's really nothing they can do about it because it just takes too long. They'll just have to weather it out. But the chance of getting a victory after that 2-year drought again here at Cleveland seemed to be clearly out the window now for Mario Andretti.
And Roberto Guerrero in trouble now on the track. The Miller Genuine Draft car sideways in the circuit. Looks like he just lost it coming off the corner. We caught it after it had happened. And Roberto is sitting dead in the track right now.
Okay, another thing we should make a point of, these cars do not have onboard starter motors. There is nothing he can do except wait for the course marshals or the tow vehicle.
The course marshals come out. And of course, without the course marshals, we couldn't run any of these large circuit events. And for the most part, they are all volunteers. They do great work.
If I could just make another little point on the starter, the reason they don't have starter motors, they are too heavy. They don't want to carry the weight of a starter motor around with them.
So out in front is Al Unser Jr., chased by Emerson Fittipaldi. Unfortunately, Rick Mears has now been passed. You see him back there, so he's gone a lap down. After 20 laps, here was the rundown in the field. We'll take a look down through the entire order. There's Mears, that's Pancho Carter in the machinist car, just inside of Danny Sullivan running in 3rd. Bobby Rahal runs back in 4th place. The Porsches with a very good day, and Derek Walker, Peter Parrott, the Porsche organization, they're very happy. They say for the very first time they have come to a track where the race car was ready to go racing.
And Sullivan, we watch him here, car number 7. He was 7 seconds behind Fittipaldi at one stage. Now it's down less than 4 seconds. So Sullivan is making a good charge as Fittipaldi and the front runners make their way through this traffic.
Sullivan there, that number 7 car. His teammate Fittipaldi lies just ahead. And Sullivan is moving to try to catch up with Fittipaldi while Al Unser Jr. weaves his way through traffic. There's little Al. And you just catch a glimpse of Fittipaldi, then Jeff Wood, and there is Sullivan closing in.
Sullivan did not have a happy practice session. Had some engine trouble in his primary car. Oil light kept flicking on. Had to switch to his T car, then back to his race car. So he had his fair share of troubles, but obviously most of those are well sorted now in the race.
Most of the teams now beginning to anticipate the pit stops. The first of what for most everyone should only be 2. At least that's the hope, that this would be a 2 pit stop race. There is the remote chance for some that it might be a 3 pit stop race. So up and down the pit road, most of the crews are now getting ready, fuel lines over their shoulders, tires set up on the wall and ready to go into action. Roberto Guerrero's team has already gone to work. He came in as a result of that spin. Apparently flat spotted the tires. Whatever he did, they did want to check. And Arie Luyendyk and Raul Boesel have indicated that they're heading down into the pits. and coming off of their battle. So that'll be a side-by-side stop for those two as Danny Sullivan runs in third place.
We will come across the pit stops pretty soon. In fact, Fittipaldi just ducked down into the pit lane. He is the first of the Penske cars to make his stop. We can expect Sullivan to be in the next lap or two.
Here's Gary Gerould.
And we look and we see the familiar Marlboro colors coming right in perfectly on the marks for the defending PPG point champion. Emerson Fittipaldi has reported that all is well. He likes the balance on the car. They made one fuel adjustment in the cockpit earlier. He has been very, very happy. Now off the jack, he's rolling. We've got him in just under 14 seconds on our clock, and this Penske crew is happy. Sullivan will be in the next lap. Paul?
13.5 seconds, in fact, Gary Gerould, and Fittipaldi rolls out. Bobby Rahal comes into the pits and has made his stop as well and rolls back into the action. We have yet to see the leader of the race, Al Unser Jr., come in. We've mentioned that Boycell has been in, Ari Leyendijk has been in, Teo Fabi in the Porsche has just rolled into the pits. On board now with the leader, Al Unser Jr. We should see him stop just any time now. Pancho Carter has rolled in and a little slow getting away. Mike Groff also makes his pit stop now as we watch the leader, and he is on the pit road. So Al Unser Jr. now coming down for some service from that Gallus Craco organization, and here is Lynn.
This is a routine pit stop from what I've heard. They're just putting on 4 tires and fuel. Al's very happy with the car, so they won't be making any other adjustments.
Up to 16.1 seconds, so 3 seconds longer than Fittipaldi's stop, but still well within the parameters. Lynn St. James right there to watch the action.
3 seconds can be a lot on a racetrack that averages almost 140 miles an hour. But Al Unser Jr. did, in fact, maintain the lead. Now, look at this here. That's Fittipaldi. The crisscross over of this new turn down here at turn 1, which means the pit lane now exits right into that corner. So we saw a bit of a crossover there between Foyt, Al Unser, and Emerson Fittipaldi is now right.
We wondered just about that. You and I were talking before the race, saying since they were going to join in the first turn, as Danny Sullivan comes in for his pit stop, how would they come back out? And well, Al showed us the tough way to do it. Boy, he judged that one perfectly.
Well, exactly. And of course, he can just look off to the right-hand side and see exactly where he can fit in, slots it in, away he goes.
Danny Sullivan, he's in the pits. Gary Gerould is there.
And again, this crack Penske team in action. Sullivan reported he was a little loose early, but as that fuel load lightened, the handling characteristics were right on. Thumbs up all the way around. Little problem on the right side? No, everything down and away. This one in 15 and 4 seconds.
With Al Unser Jr.'s stop, Danny Sullivan became the leader of the race, and then of course he relinquished that position as he came into the pits. Now let's just watch as he comes out to join the action right there in the first turn, and he decides to stay high of the traffic but slides in right behind Little Al and is charging Al Unser Jr. As they come onto the Lakeside Straight, it is Danny Sullivan that pushes ahead just a bit. Now Little Al should respond as they come through the first corners. Little Al trying desperately to catch Danny Sullivan. Some traffic ahead of Danny. Boy, what timing for Sullivan. The pit crew did their job. Sullivan saw where he had to join. Now here's Little Al as he darts inside of Danny Sullivan using a slower car just ahead of Sullivan. And Al Unser Jr. picks up the lead. Danny Sullivan rides in second place.
What an excellent display of how your pit crew can actually win or lose a race for you. We saw Danny's pit crew and the pit stops push him right into the lead. Third place to number 1. Now he's right into the thick of the battle for this lead.
So at the front of the field, once again, it is Al Unser Jr., but at the moment he is not unchallenged. Danny Sullivan is right there and knocking at the door. We'll be right back. Well, just about a half a mile down the lakefront, Municipal Stadium here in Cleveland, and the Oakland A's are in town with Jose Canseco, and they are ready to take on the Indians. Our ESPN cameras will be there live tonight at 8 o'clock, but right now we're at the Burke Lakefront Airport, and you're riding on board the Valvoline car with Al Unser Jr., the leader of the race, who's locked in a battle now with Danny Sullivan, who's riding just a few yards behind, and Fittipaldi is lined up just behind Sullivan. In fourth place is Bobby Rahal, and with the pit stops and the fact that Rick Mears made a pit stop early, Rick Mears was able to get his lap back and move into fifth place.
That's right. We were on board with Al Unser Jr. there. You can still see the crossovers of these taxiways are the very bumpy sections. Here's Sullivan gets down inside Guerrero. Fittipaldi's going to try and follow suit because the traffic now may begin to play a big story in the race.
And there's confirmation that Roberto Guerrero got his tires. No damage to the car with his spin and is back underway. By the way, they continue to wait for the arrival of their new Lola that they ordered as the chassis of choice now for that Alfa Romeo powered car. They say it probably won't appear until the Michigan 500. On the other hand, Eddie Cheever over at Ganassi Racing already has a brand new Lola for his target car. He did have a problem with it yesterday. He tapped the wall, but fortunately only bolt-on pieces. They were able to repair the car overnight, and Eddie Cheever is running in 10th place right now, 1 lap off the pace.
The development program of the Alfa Romeo does continue. They had some engine developments here. They're now gone to the Chevrolet Type Plenum 8 butterflies to help throttle response, which Roberto did report was much better here at Cleveland. So the development program of the Alfa Romeo does continue.
And they're using different style engines between qualifying and race, aren't they?
They have a short stroke engine. They have a long stroke engine. They're in a huge learning curve right now. They switched the Plenum from engine to engine, car to car, because it was so much better. So we wait with anticipation just to see how good the Lola is and if the chassis is one of their problems right now.
And one must remember, they've only been in racing for a little over a year now. They made their debut at Detroit a year ago, and it takes about 1.5 years, 2 years before a development program really comes online.
And of course, we saw Porsche when they came. It took them a long time to learn. They didn't qualify for their first race. We saw the Ligier Formula One team get into trouble. This is a very difficult series to be successful in.
Emerson Fittipaldi, the #1 car, rides in 3rd place as he chases his teammate. Danny Sullivan, the leader of the race, is Al Unser Jr. We asked Fittipaldi about the frustrations that he's felt this year.
Well, I think the worst one I had this year was Indianapolis because everything was looking so good, and then I had the tires problem. I have to stop in the pit, change the tires twice that I didn't expect. And then Portland and Detroit, we slowed down a lot compared to the competition. But now I think we are back again to where we should be, very competitive situation on the road circuit. And I'm looking for a good half season, trying to recover the good places I lost in the beginning.
As Emerson Fittipaldi rides in 3rd, challenging his teammate Danny Sullivan here on the runways and taxiways of the Burke Lakefront Airport, and that wonderfully wide first turn as Al Unser Jr. works his way down under one of the Foster's Porsches, and there's that battle for 2nd place. In the Penske team, been asked time and time again, we'll answer it once again. They each race their own car. There's no team play there at all, except perhaps during the practice when, for example, when they changed the circuit here, Roger Penske was more than willing to run over from Rick Mears' car that he generally oversees and give the setup that was working for Rick to the other 2 cars. Did it right away so they could all 3 be quick.
Of course, that is one of the great things of a 2-car team, or in Penske's situation, a 3-car team. With good drivers, they give you good information. You have 3 times the amount of information coming from the Penske team and double the information coming from the Gallus team, of course, with Unser Jr. and Bobby Rahal. I'm a big fan of 2-car teams.
Double the information and twice as fast, as now the Porsche sitting just ahead of Danny Sullivan.
John Andretti, of course, trying to stay on the lead lap. He has not gone down a lap yet. Well, in fact, he has. Unser Jr. just put him down a lap. So John Andretti still in a learning curve here with this car.
And a yellow flag comes out at the start-finish line, and the pace car, Johnny Rutherford at the wheel, comes out. No indication as to why this yellow flag is out, except perhaps that the kart officials want to run a full course inspection here. A lot of dirt has been kicked up. Bottoming mark there in that one corner.
What we see here, in fact, looks like a bit of track surface coming up. Maybe that is what the inspection is all about, the new surface.
So the field will be slowed here with 37 laps complete in the run, and Al Unser Jr. remains out in front. Danny Sullivan is 2nd, Fittipaldi is 3rd, Bobby Rahal is 4th, Mears is 5th. The Burke Lakefront Airport under a full course yellow. The reason for the yellow, you saw it just before we went away, is a section of breakup in the 9th corner of the course, and this gives an excellent opportunity to Rick Mears, Gary Gerald.
Indeed, Paul, he just left the pits. He came in for the service that now puts him back on the same cycle with everybody else. His 2nd stop of the race, but now he'll be pitting just after the others make their final pit stop, and everything appeared to be routine. In fact, we heard Roger Penske hollering to the team, take your time, be precise, no mistakes. There didn't appear to be any. Paul?
Well, a certain advantage to Rick Mears. By the way, a very lucky one. This is only the 4th time in 9 runnings of this race that the race has been slowed by a full course yellow flag. And it happens at an ideal time for Rick Mears to jump in, make his stop. The field now begins to form up as they work on the inside of turn 9, trying to effect repairs. We'll be back with more from Cleveland. We're back at the Burke Lakefront Airport. The CART Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix. You can see the CART safety team out in the corner stations as they try to sweep some of the asphalt off the circuit. And on a hot day like this, not unexpected that a track would have trouble.
Well, that's right. Of course, heat softens everything up. And there's such an incredible force from these cars that you have to, you don't expect it, but for example, the cars weigh 1,500 pounds. At 150 miles an hour, they can double their weight. There's an incredible downforce, and these wide tires just eat up this track surface.
So under yellow, let's go down to the Porsche pit. Here's Lyn St. James.
Derek Walker, we have Fabi out there. He started 9th. He moved up to 6th. He's running very well. I know he's got a gurney lip on the rear that's loose. What's going on?
I'm afraid I screwed it up. They sent the car out too soon, and they didn't give the guys a chance to put the wicker in, so it was hanging loose there. So we just put it right after this last stop. And lost one place, but we're doing okay.
But I understand the car was actually running better with it loose.
Well, it was running a little quicker, but I don't know, as the tires have worn out later on in the segment, whether it would been running just as good. So we didn't want to take the chance.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
And with Roger Penske, Roger, you finally get a break and you get a lap back for Rick Mears. That's got to be encouraging.
Yeah, Rick said right there at the beginning, he thought that maybe something broke. The car just snapped on him, and when he did that, he damaged one of the tires, so we didn't know if there was something broken or it was just a bad tire. What he had done, it flat spotted when he spun, I guess. We brought him in out of sequence, and this helped us get back on the same lap. So, you know, it looks good. Obviously, I'm happy the way Emo and Danny are running, but, you know, Al's going to be tough. He's been tough all year.
Well, you get back now in sequence. In fact, you have a couple of laps cushion. You can almost be the last to make the final pit stop if you choose.
Well, that'll give us some strategy at the end. We'll just have to see what happens if there's another yellow or where we go at the end.
Okay, Roger Penske calling the shots for Rick Mears, and of course keeping a close tab on the rest of his team, Fittipaldi and Sullivan.
And that Penske team is riding 2nd, 3rd, and 7th right now. The yellow, by the way, saved Mario Andretti. He was less than a second from being lapped. We'll be back with more from the Burke Lakefront Airport. We're still under a full course yellow here at the Burke Lakefront Airport while they continue to sweep out in one of the corners, trying to get all the granular material from the asphalt that's been pulled up off the course and make it safe to race through that area. The field lined up behind the PPG pace car. There it comes, Johnny Rutherford at that pace car. The race summary to this point in the running after 40 laps. Al Unser Jr. is the leader. He's led 34 of those laps, and this is the only full course caution that we have had. A bit surprising that we have a full course here today. Doesn't often happen here at the Burke Lakefront Airport. And there are 7 cars currently running on the lead lap. Average speed to this point is 123.56 miles an hour.
And of course, with the yellow, there are no more fuel worries for the Chevrolet drivers. Now, because they've run slowly for 3 or 4 laps from the yellow, they can now use as much as they like and go as hard as they like.
Cars out of the race. Raul Boesel, by the way, was just up here by the broadcast booth as Brazilian television is transmitting live back to Brazil from this point. And Raul, of course, of great interest, as is Fittipaldi. He's still in uniform. Randy Lewis out of the race as well. And you're on board with Bobby Rahal as he continues to seek out the best possible line that he can find. And here on these runways, there are many lines.
There are many lines. And of course, what Rahal is thinking now is how will he make his way past Pancho Carter and past A.J. Foyt, who's still running strongly here in an effort to try and keep a good eye on Sullivan and Fittipaldi, who are now all in a line behind this man, Al Unser Jr.
Well, A.J. Foyt started 21st here, is now up and running in 13th place. He finished 10th on Portland's road course 2 weeks ago.
Notice what Al Unser Jr. does behind the yellow flag, or behind the pace car. He accelerates and then lets off, and then a lot of throttle and then off again. What he's doing is he's clearing out the engine all the time. If they run these engines very slowly, they tend to put too much fuel in, get too rich, smother the plugs, and begin to misfire. So he accelerates and clears the engine out. You hear it right there again.
Does it again. So So Al Unser Jr. keeping track of business in the cockpit. And the pace car begins to accelerate ahead now. We should see a green flag as Al Unser Jr. comes around the last corner and heads toward the start-finish line. The green flag comes out once again. And once again, they split wide as they come down to the first turn. But Little Al got a good jump on Danny Sullivan, who's in second place. There is Fittipaldi just inside, and Bobby Rahal tracking down the inside as well. The faster cars all in pursuit now, but Al Unser Jr. with a definite advantage.
There's John Andretti just about to be passed by Danny Sullivan. Sullivan needs to get past him because Al Unser Jr. is edging away. He gets down inside the Porsche car.
John Andretti 1 lap down, currently running in 8th place. And now Fittipaldi pulls up alongside John, trying to get past as well so he can stay in contact with his teammate, Danny Sullivan. Fittipaldi is passed. Now the two of them begin once again to pursue Al Unser Jr., but Little Al has pulled a bit away.
He has pulled away. Sullivan running a strong second. We see Al Unser Jr. gone out of the picture, but we see Rahal right in the picture. Here's Al Unser Jr. Notice he wears that helmet strap again. It is a road course. Al Unser Jr. wears this more than any other driver. It's also a protection, really. If there is ever an incident, your head doesn't fly around the car, but mainly he uses it to counteract such high G-forces. Let's get down to Gary Gerould.
Well, alongside Derek, Billy Camphausen, one of the chief officials for Championship Auto Racing teams. Tell us what happened in that turn and why you had to throw the yellow full course.
Gary, we had a couple of cars that were involved, and we had to do a pack up. And while we were down under the pack up, we were in a lengthy yellow situation because Little Al Jr. had indicated that turn 2 had some sharp pebbles because of a sharp apex, bringing pebbles up on the surface. When we were out, he was telling us turn 2, but it was really turn 4 because of the new configuration. So we cleaned it up and we're ready and we're back racing.
Okay, that's the word from Billy Camphausen, Paul.
Well, you heard Little Al earlier. He and his own chief engineer, Alan Mertens, they argue about which is the front straight and the back stretch. I'm not so sure I would have taken information from Little Al on that one.
Well, that's right. Of course, the confusing thing also is there are turn 5 and there's station 5. Station 5 is the 5th station that they have the flag marshal, so that can often be a confusing item also.
On board with Rahal. By the way, a tip of our hat to the kart officials, Wally Dallenbach, the chief steward, who always do splendid work. But here today, especially with that exciting finish of the Gulf, it ran just a little long, and with the cooperation of the owners and drivers, they delayed the start of this race a little bit, which is very difficult for those teams to do. We do thank them for it so that all of you could see all of the run here at Cleveland in the Cleveland Budweiser Grand Prix. On board with Bobby Rahal, the leader of the race is still Al Unser Jr., Danny Sullivan second, Fittipaldi third, Rahal is fourth, Mario Andretti runs in fifth. We'll be right back. Back at the Burke Lakefront Airport, I'm Paul Page with Derek Daly, Gary Gerould, and Lynn St. James. The Cleveland Budweiser Grand Prix, and there is the battle. The #1 car of Emerson Fittipaldi and Bobby Rahal. They battle for third place, and Rahal has been right up there most of the time. Rahal was quickest in the final practice yesterday, and he is strong on this circuit. Now we're on board with Bobby Rahal, and as he leans into the corner, Derek Daly, you can see some of those aerodynamic devices attached to his helmet.
That's right. On these open cockpit cars, one of the biggest problems, particularly when you're following a car closely, is buffeting. Buffeting of the driver's head knocks him backwards and forwards. What Bell helmets have done is they've added these little, you see them there right on the side of Rahal's helmet. What they're used for, we see Debbie Rahal just have a little drink as she watches her husband. But what these little additions are used for on this helmet is to smooth the airflow over the helmet to try and stop this severe buffeting that the drivers get, particularly in this situation when they took right in under the rear wing of Fittipaldi like he is right here now.
They both come around Dean Hall, who spun, recovered, and got started again just a few seconds ago. Dean Hall, by the way, having a pretty good run, even though he's 2 laps off the leader. You catch him down the inside there. Dean Hall running in 15th place. And by the way, Michael Greenfield, a rookie in this start, is up running in 13th place.
This is the battle right now. Rahal snuck down the inside, but Fittipaldi gets a little bit of a better run. So we're going to watch Debbie Rahal cheers on the husband. He does keep that position. Fittipaldi doesn't get a good run. So Rahal now eventually got third place from Fittipaldi.
So Rahal comes forward in position, and we've just caught Debbie Rahal. She took a spill on her horse and is supposed to be wearing a neck brace. I'm sure her doctor noted that as well. She isn't wearing it in the pits here today. Bobby Rahal moves up, third place. now chases Danny Sullivan. Let's take a look at that pass with Bobby Rahal one more time, as he now has some distance to go.
Okay, Rahal follows Fittipaldi. Now he ducks down the inside. There's so much room here. Rahal heads right for the apex, right for the apex. Fittipaldi turns in, boom, has a back out, can't take the apex. Rahal has it, and away they go. Now look what happens here. Fittipaldi tries to come back inside again, trying to get the run down to the next right-hander, but Rahal just held him off right there.
Rahal had the faster exit on the corner, and as a result has third place now. But Al Unser Jr. out in front here. Winner on the streets of Long Beach. The winner at Milwaukee. 2 wins this year, looking for his third.
2 sets of teammates running first and third and second and fourth. Interesting, Rahal and Al Unser Jr. have different driving styles. Al Jr. likes his car a little bit softer than Rahal.
So Al Unser Jr., the Valvoline car, in front. Car number 5, Al Unser Jr. with a spectacular run here today, but Sullivan and Rahal are in contact. We're back at the Cleveland Budweiser Grand Prix as we take a look at this airport circuit just flying away behind the wheels of Al Unser Jr. with a great run here today. The CART Indy cars. The next ESPN coverage, of course, is the Molson Indy Toronto, midnight Eastern on July 23rd. Alongside the shores of another of the Great Lakes up there in Toronto. Beautiful run at the Exhibition Place in Toronto. We'll be there. Of course, in a week, the Indy cars race at the Meadowlands of New Jersey. And Al Unser Jr. is now being worried to death by Danny Sullivan.
I think this is one of Al Unser Jr.'s toughest and hardest races. He is using every inch of the racetrack, and Sullivan is shadowing his every move. On top of that, his teammate Rahal is closing up on both of them. So Al Unser Jr. absolutely has his hands full right now.
Well, while Bobby Rahal has been winless so far this season, he has been consistently strong, which has kept him in the points. Danny Sullivan looking for his first win of the year. And Al Unser Jr. trying to stay at the top of the order in the PPG points. He is currently the leader, and he just picked up 1 point as a bonus for leading the most laps here. And that single point could be incredibly important. In 1985, remember, he lost the championship by a single point.
By a single point to his dad, no less. But Al Unser Jr. absolutely using everything he has in his bag of tricks here to stay ahead of Sullivan. Sullivan's car looks just a little bit better under braking, but other than that, these cars are very, very evenly matched.
Keeping an eye on these Penske cars, the Penske Chevrolet 90s, is Nigel Bennett, the designer of the cars, who has been absent from the Penske pits for a couple of races. I'm sure he already has his wind tunnel mock-up of the 1991 car under test over in England, at Poole, England, where these cars are built, and is now coming to his first opportunity to come back and take a look and see how now what he probably views as the old car is doing.
Well, that's right. It's amazing. These cars are obsolete almost as they're built, because they constantly update and change and try and improve. Because if they can make a new car go a tiny bit quicker, maybe half a second, you or I would have difficulty measuring that. Half a second faster is a major success story for a designer.
Danny Sullivan loses the front end just for a second there as he continues his pursuit, and there's Pancho Carter as he comes off the course in the machinist car. Fortunately, he doesn't touch anything, and everyone else gets around smoothly.
One of the fastest corners on the track, he lost it on just after turn 6, where Al Unser Jr. has just shot through there, but Carter is still off the road in the grass, so I'm not so sure whether the tow vehicles can actually get to him or not.
Looking ahead to the rules for 1991, there's the CART safety team. As they come across, they'll get Pancho Carter back underway. Very little change in the rules for the next couple of years, in fact. But next year, a full carbon fiber tub will be allowed.
It's amazing, really, the trouble that the Porsche IndyCar team had when their carbon car was disqualified from being able to be used for this year. And what Robin Herd told me, what that did was instantly add 40 pounds of weight to the car and take away 2 months of testing. That is why they feel they're not competitive right now.
On board with third place, Bobby Rahal, as he chases Danny Sullivan in second. His teammate, Al Unser Jr., is out in front. By the way, our congratulations to Dale Earnhardt, who scored his 5th win of the season yesterday in the Pepsi Firecracker 400. You saw it here on ESPN Grand Prix. It is still Al Unser Jr. that leads. Danny Sullivan being chased by Bobby Rahal, and Rahal has been closing steadily in on Al Unser Jr. Let's go to Lyn St. James.
When the drivers make those pit stops and you see them hand the bottle out, most drivers have to have something to replenish all of the fluids that they're losing. And there's a variety of things that they drink. You've got Gatorade, you've got Exceed. These are actually mixes that they put together. There's also another mix that Nassau puts together, and some drivers might just drink plain water. But in about 2 hours, at about 95 degrees, 100+ degrees in the cockpit, you need to put something in there to replenish those fluids. So drivers have a variety of things that they decide to drink.
And it's more than just a matter of refreshment.
Further up the pit road.
More than refreshment, you're right.
Further up the pit road, as we came out in the end of Lyn's report, we have Michael Andretti, who had a chance to stop at the transporter once he got across the track and change out of the uniform. And I tell you, there seems to be no middle ground for you this year. It's either elation or despair, and today I guess it's the latter. Not good fortune early.
No, it's a real shame. You know, I had a pretty good start. I was able to get the lead, and as soon as I dumped it into turn 2, the motor just quit, just died on me. And by the time they got me in and changed the electronics on it and got me out, I was about 5 lifts down. But the car was still running very good. I think capable of winning, because I was reeling in the leaders. I could see it. You know, this is one track that you could see all the leaders all the time, and I was reeling them in, and then Scott Brayton did a nice little spin in front of me and lets his foot off the brake and goes right in front of me, and you know, really ends the day in fashion.
Well, all of the points that you gained in the last couple of weeks momentarily sidelined now. We'll talk to you, of course, races ahead. We wish you well next week in New York.
Thank you very much.
Michael Andretti, Paul.
Sad for Michael. Interesting season, though, in 5 races. When he finishes, he wins. Michael has won twice. His other 3 have been DNFs. Here it is again today. Keeping an eye on the leader, Al Unser Jr. The interval back to Sullivan separates a bit, as Derek Daly does the interval back to Bobby Rahal.
In fact, Rahal was right behind Sullivan, made a couple of attempts to go down the inside, and in fact lost ground because he made that attempt. He went off the ideal line, got into a little bit of trouble, and now has to try and eat away at that ground again to try and get back up to Sullivan before he can make another attempt.
That's Mike Groff in the 50 car, coming carefully out of the pits. Tony Bentonhausen in the AMAX Cole number 16 car, who finds himself in there along with Bobby Rahal, but Bentonhausen is running in 15th place, 3 laps off of the pace. Bobby Rahal, the Craco STP machine.
I mentioned earlier on, between these 2 team drivers, Al Unser Jr. and Bobby Rahal, Jr. likes his car a little bit softer. Interestingly enough, for the final warm-up session, Rahal went softer with his suspension, liked it, and in fact was the fastest car on the track. Rahal looks very good here right now at this late stage in the race.
Roberto Guerrero has now retired from the fight, as has Scott Goodyear, and Michael Greenfield's number 42 car just a few moments was pushed down the pits and out of the race as well. So attrition beginning to play a role here today. At the front of the field, though, no problems, it seems, for Al Unser Jr. He's still out in front in the Valvoline car. Though once again, we're seeing Bobby Rahal close in just a bit, and Emerson Fittipaldi is due into the pits for a stop. Gary Gerald's there.
Yes, indeed, Paul. We're wondering if they've got radio problems, because they wanted him in the last 2 laps. He finally came in, and of course they're trying to stagger the Penske pit stops. Emerson takes a one of those shields off his helmet. He gets a spray of water, and he's back off 14.4 seconds.
They in fact made a right front wing adjustment to Emerson's car. They raised that front wing, so Emerson has a little bit of understeer, a little bit of push, which he's trying to get rid of to make his charge during the closing stages of the race.
So Emerson Fittipaldi comes into the action just alongside his teammate Rick Mears in the number 2 Pennzoil car. Mears currently runs in 5th and is still on the leader lap. Now can Fittipaldi move into position? And he works his way around Mears. So now Fittipaldi has 5th. Rick comes back to 6th. And we're seeing some handling difficulties. I wonder if that's relative to braking.
I would say that was probably relative to cold tires. Right after a pit stop, full fuel load, tires not quite up to working temperature. Let's go down to Lyn St. James.
This is a routine pit stop at this point. We'll see if it's quicker than the last one. They're having a problem getting all the fuel in.
Bobby Rahal is back away. The fuel runs very as much fuel in the big tank, not as much pressure to push it down.
We saw earlier on how pit stops are so critical when Sullivan went from third to leading the race. Now remember, Sullivan has not stopped yet. Al Unser Jr. has not stopped yet.
Bobby Rahal in and out as the teams now begin to play the tactics of this race, cycling so very carefully their pit stops. Rahal has stopped, Fittipaldi has stopped. Still waiting for Al Unser Jr., Rahal's teammate, the leader of the race, and Danny Sullivan. Mario Andretti, as a result of these stops, has moved up into third place.
Rahal really looks to me as if he's actually got stronger as the race has gone on. Lagged back a little bit in the opening stages, the early stages of the race, but as the race has gone on, Rahal has really become a stronger threat than he was early in the race.
Had a glimpse of John Andretti there, John running in 8th. Also, we saw the 44 car of Jeff Wood, who runs in 15th place right now. And you're back on board with Bobby Rahal as we come down to the final segments of this run here on the Burke Lakefront Airport.
Again, the teams stagger the pit stops. Rahal is Al Jr.'s teammate. They want to make sure they're not in the pit at the same time, so they stagger the pit stops. Al Jr. knows that both of their pits are now free for him to use.
They work their way around the track, and here comes Al Unser Jr. Now they're pushing a car down the pit road. That is the Eddie Cheever car just ahead. Here's Lyn St. James.
Obviously a very critical stop. They get all the fuel in, and the fuel is gushing out. Fuel everywhere. There's fire.
A fire in the pits as 2 of the crew members come over, and pandemonium down in the Gallus pit. Al Unser Jr. comes out of the car. They dump water on him, but he wants to stay in. Now he decides he's out of there, and with the help of his crew, he climbs out of the car. Just that quickly, it lights up.
I'm sorry, I don't know where the cameraman is.
Lyn St. James appears to be okay. She was right on top of this. Shelley Unser gets a dousing as she grabs a bucket of water in case anyone else. That's the one good thing about alcohol. While on one hand you can't see the fire, on the other hand, one injured crewman there.
Of course, the big panic situation is to get the driver out. He is strapped inside that car when the car erupts into flames. And one of the crew members, we can't see exactly who it is, does have an injury.
Fire, speculate on this one at all.
Fire, of course, is one of the great hazards and one of the most feared hazards from a race car driver's point of view. But the pit stop, we alluded to it earlier on, how important the good pit stop is. Disaster for Gallus Racing.
Well, they've gone to a full course yellow as a result of this. Serious situation down in the pits. And of course, we're greatly concerned for the safety of those Gallus Preco crew members. Plenty of medical help right there. I was about to say that the good news is that the water that they throw, unlike if you throw it on a gasoline fire, would only spread it. It dilutes the alcohol down below its own combustion point and puts the fire out. So a couple places here in the pit, they are working on that car, actually working on some of the crew members.
When Al Unser Jr. came into the pits, they sent out the water bottle. He threw it away immediately, didn't want it, and right then we saw the problem. The fuel.
Let's take a look at it right here.
Out. Here he comes in. There's the water bottle. He immediately says, no, I don't want the water bottle. Now they're trying to put the fuel in, and it gushes out immediately over the crew member here on the left front. Then it catches fire. I think it's that crewman there that, in fact, the flames must have got. And then, of course, the water buckets come over, because that's the only thing that dilutes methanol is water. That's why they have so much of it in the pit lane.
I believe I know who that is, but I certainly don't want to speculate. I don't want to guess on a serious situation like this.
Now, Al Unser Jr. is not out of the car yet. Watch Rahal's crew. They're over there. The Craco crew are over there trying to get Al Jr. and the rest of the fire put out.
And the kart safety team is there. And Al Unser Jr. is going to take a ride to the hospital. By the way, all these shots being gained by Bunt Young, our cameraman. We've been on many assignments together. There's Terry Trammell, the head of the medical team here, orthopedic surgeon out of Indianapolis.
Luckily, the CART medical team are probably the best. Look at Al Unser Jr. has a cold, wet towel to his face. We're not sure yet whether Al suffered any burns or any injuries. Let's go down to Gary Gerald.
Now, we're at the front of the vehicle. No official word, but we can see Al and Shelley in the back. As you're seeing from Bunt Young's camera position, we've seen 3 other crew members receiving administrative medical aid on the other side of the wall. Meanwhile, you've got race cars coming in. Mario Andretti pitting. I don't think there's any serious problem here for Al Unser as CART Safety Vehicle 2 takes him away. Let's go to Lynn St. James.
Here with the 2 crew members, it's Mike Arnold and Paul Harvey. They've got burns on his legs and also burns on his face, but they have a full crew here of medical people that are taking attention. They have an ambulance that's taking one of them away, but there's also some minor injuries. There's a number of crew members that have minor injuries, but those are the 2 crew members' names that I could get.
Well, let's hope that they are both okay. Our wishes certainly go with them, and we will keep you updated on that situation. Plenty of help there. Here is the onboard camera view of the same pit stop.
Al Unser Jr., of course, sits there, expects everything to go normally. Now panic sets in. The water has already begun to come down. Al Unser Jr. puts his visor down. See that? To protect his face from the flames. Now he gets stuck in the car. Look, he has to get back in. Something wrong. Undoes the steering wheel. Can't get it off. A crew member comes, helps, yanks them out of the car.
Yeah, the hesitation was to climb out of these cars, you have to remove the steering wheel, and he tried to come out while the steering wheel was still attached. They got it off. The car sits in the pits, and Al Unser's race. He was the leader when he came to the pits. Is done. Danny Sullivan under a full course yellow takes over the lead. Bobby Rahal is in second place.
The Quaker State engine.
We're back at the CART Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix. Danny Sullivan is the leader under a full course yellow. We go for years without a full course yellow. We have had 2 today. Now, the reason for the yellow this time is a result of Al Unser Jr.'s fire in the pits. They doused so much water out into the pit area that the pit road itself is slick and therefore dangerous. The pit is part of the racing surface, Derek Daly, so they can't take any chances. They have to go yellow.
That's right. They do have to, because a potentially more dangerous situation could occur if other drivers try to race into the pits. Also, a lot of the CART medical people are now taken away and working on the injured people.
Now, what about the tactics of this race? We'll have to look into that situation as well. As while we consider it, let's get an update from Gary Gerald.
Rick Gallis, of course, very, very concerned. Rick, can you tell us what you were able to see and give us an assessment of what you know?
My guys are down, and I don't know. I think Al's okay, but Mike's in real bad shape right here. And he's awake, and it's just a real terrible thing that happened. You know, this racing's a very dangerous thing, and it's tough.
Do you have any idea, did the hose become disengaged, or do you have any idea why the fuel came?
I was so busy trying to pull people out, I just didn't know, Gary.
All right, obviously very concerned, very shaken. We'll let Rick Gallis continue about his duties here as they continue to work with Mike Arnold and another injured crew member, Paul.
We worry about Mike Arnold. Rick Gallis, you heard the emotion in his voice. He is more than just a strong businessman who also owns an IndyCar team. This team is his family as far as he's concerned, so you can see it there behind those sunglasses. He's definitely worried about the safety of all of his people.
That's exactly right. When drivers do interviews, they refer to, we did this and we did that. It's so much a family and a team effort, and everybody worries for the safety of every member of that crew.
Rick Gallis will refer to his associates as partner, and he absolutely means it. So we continue to wait for further reports on the status of the members of the Gallis crew. We'll be back right after this. Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix here on ESPN. Still under a full course yellow, the second of the day, and under the yellow flag it is Danny Sullivan that leads, followed by Bobby Rahal, then Fittipaldi, Mears, Teo Fabi as we look down through the bottom half of the top 10. 67 laps of the 85 scheduled distance are complete here, but they continue to work in the pits. And during all the action, by the way, the Eddie Cheever car out of Ganassi Racing was pushed out of the race as well. But the real concern continues to be for members of Al Unser's crew. Here's a chance to take a look one more time at the situation that developed while the leader of the race was making his pit stop.
Here he comes in for his last pit stop. He was leading the race at this time, came in for what he had hoped was a normal pit stop. The crew goes in, the vent man sticks the vent in the top, and right as the fuel lines get pushed in, suddenly the fuel erupts. Now, it's obviously the car is empty, so the fuel is coming out of the hose, but flames did erupt, and it caught fire to the rest of the methanol that went around the pit lane, and of course the car was being swarmed on at that particular time by the crew members changing the tires.
I want to point out too that while everyone else was running the other way, one of the firemen was right there in the middle. You can see them marked by their fireman helmets. Those firemen were moving toward the fire while everyone else was moving away.
This is a good example of why CART makes everybody in the pit wear fire suits. People think they're protected because they're not in the car or on the racetrack. This is a classic example of why everybody should wear and does wear the fireproof materials.
And of course, the methanol fuel is invisible as burns. There's Bunt, who was right in the middle of all of that. Good service for us, Bunt.
We never saw him falter, and people pushed him aside, and he kept to his job, trying to bring us the incredible pictures that he did of that incident.
A reminder, as racing will so often do to us, that it is, in fact, a very dangerous sport. What separates it from a game.
And of course, Paul, now it brings up the question, what happens from here? Well, the cold hard facts of racing is the incident will have to be dealt with and put aside, because everybody that's on the track right now has another job to do. They are being paid to go and race as hard as possible right now, and it's going to be an absolute sprint from now on. And of course, Bobby Rahal, one of the Gallus teammates, is going to be right in there.
You wonder what's going through Rahal's mind. He sits in second place behind Sullivan. At Phoenix, he was second. At Indy, he was second. At Detroit, he was second. In other words, half of the races that he's finished this year, he's been in second place. He's right there now, right behind the Penske car of Danny Sullivan.
But remember, right before this incident and before this pit stop, Rahal, we thought, looked one of the strongest racers on the track at the time. So I think Rahal's in very good condition.
Let's go to Gary Gerould.
Paul, they continue to treat two of the Gallus crew members here on site. They have transported Mike Arnold now to the emergency care unit here on the grounds, which is located way down toward the end of the first turn back in the pit area, the safety unit. That was Mike Arnold. We saw Shelley and Al Unser go away in cart 2, and they were checking them out. We have no further information, but we could see that they were all conscious, they were alert, and were talking. Two other crew members here, Gary Armentrout and Brian Barnhart, are being treated, awaiting transportation now for further updates. Again, conscious, alert, talking to the people who are with them. There are some superficial burns. We don't know how extensive they are. That's yet to be determined, but control has been regained here, and the medical people and the emergency people have been doing a marvelous job in what was a very frightening situation, obviously.
So, as you see, the emergency helicopter, which is parked down by the CART Safety Center, that big yellow vehicle it's really a hospital on wheels. It's really an excellent facility. It's Terry Trammell, Dave Crippen, the rest of the doctors that are here, paramedics, all those who travel throughout the series. They can go in there. They have all the medical information, not only on the drivers, but any participant, crew member, owner, whatever here. So you can be assured they are now receiving the best possible care, and we wish them all well. Still under a full course yellow. The PPG pace car is out in front. We'll be back. Live in Cleveland, I'm Paul Page with Derek Daly. Gary Gerould and Lynn St. James are covering in the pits. We are under a full course yellow as a result of fire in the pits of Al Unser Jr. His car burst into flame during a refueling. 5 different individuals, including Al Unser, have been taken to the track medical facility here. We'll give you updates just as fast as they are made available to us from the CART Communications Director, Mel Poole. So the cars are moving around this course very slowly now behind the PPG pace car. Let's get an update from the pits.
Yes, Paul, I'm in the Sullivan pit, and he did make that pit stop while that unfortunate fire happened. All 3 Penske cars have pitted, so they can go the distance at this point. They are full with fuel. They can definitely go the distance.
Thank you, Lynn. So the real question would be Bobby Rahal. Remember, the pit that caught fire was directly adjacent to that of Rahal, but he made his stop just ahead of the fire and should not have, Derek Daly, any need for service out of that pit if he's to stay a contender.
No, certainly after this long yellow period, there's no car on the track now that should have to make another stop, unless of course there's a mechanical problem with the cars. So it is a sprint from here to the end, and of course we watched Sullivan do his final warm-up behind the pace car. There's 2 lapped cars, Tony Bettenhausen, and that looks like Mike Groff, and then Rahal. Of course, Rahal needs to dispense with this traffic just as soon as possible, because look at Fittipaldi, absolutely right behind Rahal.
Still under the yellow with 14 laps to go. But the signal coming out that we should be going back to green very shortly here. Teo Fabi is now sitting in 5th place behind Rick Mears. It's Sullivan, Rahal, Fittipaldi, Mears, and Fabi. And Teo Fabi's last top 5 finish was last September at Elkhart Lake. So while we wait for the green flag to come out, Danny Sullivan is in the lead of the field. We should be back to racing momentarily. Cleveland, and anticipating a green flag this time around, it's Danny Sullivan that leads the field. And then, as Derek Daly noted, a couple of slower cars. The pace car, Johnny Rutherford, has the lights out. That indicates the yellow lights on top of the car. That indicates to the leader of the serial and everyone behind him that they will, in fact, accelerate toward the green flag here. Danny Sullivan is keeping the speed of the field down as they come to the last few corners.
Of course, then he selects second gear and makes a shoot through this last right-left-hander to get a good jump on this restart. Sullivan is well clear right now, but look at Rahal come down the inside, splits that lap traffic, and now he's right behind Sullivan.
Tony Bettenhausen comes high, and there is Fittipaldi sitting right behind Rahal. As Rahal now in contact with the leaders, the front runners are all running together. Sullivan, Rahal, Fittipaldi, Mears, Fabi, they're all in contact in the closing laps of this run.
Sometimes it goes well for you, sometimes it goes badly. We've seen a couple of bad days for Al Jr. and Michael Andretti, but look at Rick Mears. We saw him go off the track earlier on, make an early stop, be a lap down. Now he's in a strong 4th place.
Bobby Rahal's car looking back to Fittipaldi and Mears. Just ahead of this car, of course, is Danny Sullivan. So the Penske team in a very strong position now, running 1st, 3rd, and 4th.
This is still Rahal's car. We're looking back from Rahal's car. Now we're inside the cockpit with him. His head bobs and weaves around. He selects 5th gear, hands back on the steering wheel. Rahal is chasing Sullivan. Let's get down to Gary Gerald.
Updating the Bobby Rahal situation, we checked with Barry Green. It's business as best can be normal with this team, chasing in second. They're all caught up, of course. It's just a flat-out sprint, as you well predicted. Let's give you one further update on the injury situation. Paul Harkus, who was working on the left front of Al Unser Jr.'s car, was also among the injured. So we now have 4 crew members injured. The fueler, Mike Arnold, the vent man, Gary Armentrout, Brian Barnhart, who was on the left rear, and Paul Harkus on the left front. 2 of the crewmen are now being helicoptered from the racetrack to a hospital for further emergency services. So that brings us up to date, the information we have at the moment in this very frantic pit. Paul?
And as we approach the end of this race, we will keep you as updated as we can. Of course, medical updates on those crew members will come well after this race is over. Out in front, it's Danny Sullivan. We watch the Craco car, the STP machine of Bobby Rahal as he works around the circuit. Danny Sullivan is out in front. No one in contact at the moment. They've strung out, apparently taking a look at the last laps of this race. So Danny Sullivan has his challenge now being mounted by Rahal, Fittipaldi, and Mears. We'll be right back. Well, back at the Burke Lakefront Airport, Danny Sullivan in the Marlboro number 7 is out in front. Bobby Rahal trying to catch up. Fittipaldi trying to catch Rahal. And Penske teammate Rick Mears also trying to catch Fittipaldi. So it's a battle at the front, though Mears sitting back. There you've seen the interval of the first place cars. Ari Luyendyk you saw there in the number 30 Domino's Pizza car. He is not in the order. Mario Andretti is, though. He is in that Kmart car, and he is running in 5th place, trying to catch Mears. With 9 laps to go, we have a tremendous battle through the front 5 cars here on the racetrack.
Luyendyk looks as if he's running stronger than he has been most of the day, but he will frustrate Mario Andretti because Luyendyk is trying to keep up with Mears, and Mario just cannot get by Luyendyk, and he knows Luyendyk is 1 lap down.
You see Mario Andretti driving so desperately, really kicks the left rear off. Of course, he can do that safely and maintain control, but it shows that he's using every inch of the circuit available to him to keep his momentum up.
In the last 10 laps here, everything is still to be had. I mean, Mario has struggled most of the day, but at least that 5th place, or possibly Mears' 4th place, is what he needs and what he wants.
Arie Luyendyk, the 30 car, runs in 7th place. Obviously 1 lap off the lead in the position between Rick Mears, the 4th place car, and the 5th place car of Mario Andretti. So Mario trying to get around Luyendyk. We'll continue to watch this fight. At the front of the field, Danny Sullivan is not in contact with 2nd place Bobby Rahal at the moment, though Rahal trying to catch up. And look there's Mario coming to the inside of Luyendyk and gets past him. Now having to tangle with Luyendyk is the 6th place car of Teo Fabi, who is closing in as well.
I'm sure Luyendyk's crew over the radio would have said, move over, let Mario by, because really there's a bit of courtesy has to be shown here. Luyendyk knows he's not in the lead battle, and I think he probably backed off a little bit to let Mario have a clear road right there.
The 2 Foster's Porsches run together as well. Teo Fabi and John Andretti on the circuit. They're having a good day. Of course, they came to this race feeling this was the first time this season that they were really able to unload the car and go racing. There are those team cars, Porsche powered, finally coming online. I'm sure Derek Walker and his Porsche crew are very happy with that.
Fabi looks as if he was in trouble there. John Andretti pulled out and shot by him. In fact, Fabi is in trouble, pulls off. We were just about to say how reliable these 2 cars were, and then Fabi goes and blows the theory and pulls off the road.
Well, Teo Fabi was running in 6th place. John Andretti is running in 8th place behind Luyendyk. So now the hopes are pinned on John Andretti. And here is Mario closed right up behind Rick Mears in a fight for 4th place.
This is the battle right now because the leaders, Sullivan and Rahal, are quite spread apart, but this is the battle right here. Mario Andretti trying to get by Rick Mears. Will he go down the inside? This is turn 1 where there's loads of room to go down the inside. Mario had a little look, decided not to. Now they accelerate off down the backstretch.
7 laps to go. The battle is for 4th place. Remember, because of the new configuration here at the track, every lap here is a record as well as the race itself, because it's a whole new distance, 2.369 miles around, just about 1/10 of a mile shorter than the track was for the past 8 years.
Mario, of course, coming off a very, very good 2nd place, chasing his son Michael at Portland, is much, much later on the brakes than Rick Mears is into that infield section. So that is a possibility of a pass right there, under braking on the infield section. Let's watch it later on.
Mario Andretti, obviously a master on the road courses, a world champion in Formula One. World champion in the Indy cars as well, as he's right up behind Mears now. No longer encumbered by Luyendyk, who sits back behind them.
Okay, under braking that time, he decided to stay right in behind. We see a yellow flag on the infield section, not to do with us right here. Down into turn 1, Mario doesn't even have a look, decides it's not worth it right here. But on this run here, from here to the next right-hander, is where Mario is faster than Mears.
Possible too that Mario now knows where he's faster and has picked a position and just wants to inch his way forward, so in the closing laps he can make the pass. Here is Mario. He comes sweeping down inside. Well, we know where the place is now.
That's the one area Mario is considerably faster than Mears, but I'm not sure that he can actually make the pass there, because Rick is actually holding quite a tight line through there.
So the battle continues between Mears and Andretti. Don't forget, the Olympic Festival will come up next here on ESPN as our coverage of the festival continues. But right now, it's IndyCar racing at the Burke Lakefront Airport.
Both Chevrolets, but different chassis. That's the Penske 90 chassis with Rick Mears and the very successful and good Lola 90 chassis that Mario is in. They put another lap on Tony Bettenhausen in the Amex Cole Lola. But Mears and Andretti still is the battle here.
Tony was very aware of the presence of the faster cars, has given them plenty of room, as a gentleman racer should. And now John Andretti begins to do battle with Arie Luyendyk.
That is for position. They are running currently 6th and 7th, so that is for position right there. Luyendyk and John Andretti in the Porsche.
Danny Sullivan, the number 7 car, remains unchallenged at the lead. This is the fight on the circuit, and it is the fight for 6th place. And look at young John. Boy, he's right there with this year's Indy champion.
This year's Indy champion, but incredibly has really had a poor season before and after Indy, not quite able to get the same magic touch they had all through the month of May. And now John Andretti filling his mirrors.
4 laps laps to go at the Burke Lakefront Airport. The race distance originally scheduled to 80 laps. We're over that mark now, but they extended the distance to 85 laps. Danny Sullivan is still the leader. Bobby Rahal is still in second place. There's Sullivan.
Sullivan really has a very controlled hand on the situation now. He's managed to pull out quite a distance over Rahal. So Sullivan down through the crossover taxiways here onto one of the other taxiways, pulls out behind Jeff Wood. Jeff Wood, in fact, backs off, it looks a little bit, and Sullivan gets on his way. Well in control right now.
And when Danny Sullivan comes up to peak speed on the Lakeside Straight, you can get an idea. You can see the ripples of air, heat, and the whole vortice that is created by the rear wing on that car. It gives you an idea of the tremendous, there you see a little bit of it there, the tremendous aerodynamics developed by these Indy cars here in the CART IndyCar World Series.
There's Rahal. There's Rahal about 15 car lengths back with only 5 laps to go. In fact, just 4 laps to go now. So Rahal has a secure second place. I don't think, in fact, I'm pretty sure, unless Sullivan has a problem, Rahal is not going to be able to catch him.
So now with 3 to go, Danny Sullivan looking to become the first 3-time winner of the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix. And Mears slows down. What could that be? Rick Mears was running in 4th and now slows down on the circuit. The Penske team was so powerful at the front of this field. And Rick Mears rolls to the wayside on the pit road. Corner workers run out to give him a hand, but by the time they get him down the pits, the race will be over. So Rick Mears falls by the wayside. Mario Andretti comes up to 4th place. That will bring Leyendyk and John Andretti forward as well. Danny Sullivan runs alone. The question that you absolutely have to ask, if something happened to one of the Penske cars, is it about to happen to the others?
Well, we had 3 of the Penske cars running in the top 4, and we had already mentioned how fortunate Rick Mears' day has been because he had such a problem at the start of the race, and now he's in the deepest trouble he's been in all day.
Got a glimpse of Chuck Sprague there, the team manager for the Penske organization, as he keeps track not only of his own car, but all 3 cars in the team. He's responsible for them all.
Well, there's Rahal.
There's Debbie Rahal.
Again, looking at Bobby running in 2nd position. I mean, this is hard to believe. He's had so many 2nd places. I mean, it is good points for the championship, but Rahal absolutely must be so frustrated at all these 2nd places right now.
Let's get this update from Gary Gerald.
Quick word with the Penske crew backing Rick Mears. They had experienced overheating problems. The engine then just expired or quit. That's all the information we have, Paul.
Danny Sullivan now with Dean Hall lying just in front. Sullivan last won at Elkhart Lake, Road America last year. Comes past Hall, and this time around will be in the closing seconds of perhaps his 3rd championship here at the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix.
I would say this is probably one of Sullivan's hardest races. There's the white flag. They're just starting their final lap. Sullivan goes by the starter stand. Nick Fenora waves that white flag. But I would think this is one of Sullivan's harder races. They have been flat out through the whole event. They had that long yellow period, but Sullivan has had to fight all day long.
See the turbulence at the back of Danny Sullivan's wing. Don't forget, the Olympic Festival is next here on ESPN. And Danny Sullivan on his final lap. Bobby Rahal out of contact with Sullivan. Fittipaldi not in contact. The top 3 positions should come to the line without any problem whatsoever. And Danny Sullivan driving for Marlboro and Roger Penske at this a Penske Speedway track is on his way now toward the checkered flag. Nick Fenoro has it in what has been a very long afternoon. There's Danny Sullivan on the pit straight now. A right turn, a left turn lie just ahead. We're looking at Danny Sullivan as he makes the final turn, and the checkered flag is just ahead. It's Danny Sullivan's 14th career win, his 8th on a road course, and of course his 3rd here at Cleveland.
A good day for Sullivan comes after his pole position at Portland. He has his troubles. Remember the Detroit problem when he was the only one that could challenge Michael.
Mario Andretti takes a run on Emerson Fittipaldi at the line, but can't get past him, so they finish. Rahal 2nd, Fittipaldi 3rd, Mario Andretti 4th. And the Foster's Porsche of John Andretti in 5th place. Arie Luyendyk is 6th. Unofficial order of finish. right here at Cleveland, the Burke Lakefront Airport. So Danny Sullivan puts his mark for the first time here in 1990 in the winners column.
He likes Cleveland. He waves to the people here for the third time on a victory lap. Danny Sullivan, the most successful driver to race here at the Cleveland Grand Prix.
And that'll bolster his spirits. But also, it'll help his pocketbook and the points count, keeping Danny Sullivan in the action as well this year. Remember, he's recovered now from a broken right arm suffered in practice at Indianapolis last year. But Danny Sullivan is the winner in the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix. Second is Bobby Rahal. Emerson Fittipaldi is third.
Turn the key.
Then Danny Sullivan climbs out of his car for the third time, the winner here in the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix. Now he unstraps his helmet, and let's go to the winner's circle for this interview brought to you by Road Handler Treadlock Radials at Sears. Tough tires you can trust.
Paul, the favorite moment of any racer's day, victory lane. Mom and Dad Sullivan out of the nose of the car. The helmet is off. The sunglasses come in along with a cold drink, and we'll get the comments of the first ever three-time winner here at Burke Lakefront Airport in Cleveland. Danny Sullivan, a great ride.
Yeah, it was a tough all afternoon. I tell you, little Al, Bobby, the first couple laps were exciting. I mean, everything. It was just a great race.
And Daniel Driscoll, the newest member of the Sullivan family, and Julie are alongside on the right with congratulatory kisses. Danny, let me get a quick word. I don't know if you were aware of the problems that Al Unser Jr. experienced in the pits. If so, to what degree is that unsettling for you when you're trying to win your own race?
Well, I don't really know, except I know he had a problem and there was a fire. To what extent, I don't know. I just know that when I came in, he was there, and I don't know anything more than that. So I hope everybody's okay, and if they're not, they're getting great medical.
Three times a winner in Cleveland, Paul. Here's the man who hopefully is getting this Penske Super team back on the right track. Their second victory of the season to go with Mears' initial win at Phoenix. Paul?
So Danny Sullivan takes a nice cold drink of water. The day is done. There's the unofficial final standings. And with this finish of the race, Rick Mears will lead Al Unser Jr. by 2 points in the championship, and only 6 points separate first through fourth in the PPG IndyCar World Standings. I'm Paul Page for Derek Daly. Gary Gerald and Lynn St. James, our best wishes to those injured in the fire today. We'll see you in 2 weeks.